Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? If you can hear me at the back, say yeah. Great. Well, welcome. This is called Having Fun at Hotels. No, I'm just kidding, actually. This is called City Kickstart, Reviving the Urban Hotel. So welcome, everybody, this afternoon. We have the graveyard slot. We are the only thing between you and the exit doors. So let's make this really interesting. And when the panelists introduce themselves, if you could give them a really good round of applause, right? So get everybody wake up, all right? So first of all, I'll let you know that my name is Richard Freeman. I'm the chief executive of the Good Hotel Guide, which is the leading independent guide to the UK and Ireland's best hotels, inns and B&Bs. And I'm very excited today to have some wonderful panelists here with me to talk about the City Hotel. So first of all, to my left, Eleanor, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Booker. I am account director for Northern Europe with Preferred Hotels and Resorts. Preferred Hotels represents around 700 independent properties worldwide, and we have around 23 properties here in the UK, including the Royal Lancaster, the Grand in York, the Lowry in Manchester, and the newly opened Londoner in Leicester Square.
Folks, let's hear it for Eleanor. Excellent. Serena.
Hello, I'm Serena von der Heide. I'm partner at Georgian House Hotel, which is a 60-room independent in Pimlico, and recently opened Victorian House Hotel, which is in Grasmere.
Let's hear it for Serena. Lovely. Few people not clapping over there. I'm not sure whether it's to be personal to Serena or what, but let's clap. We'll make sure we clap for Bernard. Bernard, introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Bernard Murphy. I'm the Group Managing Director for Ralph Trustees Limited, which is a family group of hotels with 3 hotels, the Grove in Hertfordshire, the Runnymede Hotel in Egham, and the reason I'm on this panel is the Athenaeum on Piccadilly as well.
Let's hear it for Bernard. And unfortunately, actually, Mal, I managed even managed to get them off the agenda. Someone from Visit England was supposed to be here, but unfortunately, they couldn't make it. So maybe next time. Anyway, let's start my panelists. So let's just start with a check-in. So let's talk, how's it going on the city side of hotels, right? So what are you hearing from your city hotels? How are occupancy rates, ADR, some of those key metrics, and let's see whether some of the hoteliers in the audience can identify. So Eleanor, why don't you tell us how it's going with some of your hotels in the city?
So we see a gradual increase in occupancies from when the hotels were permitted to open again in May. And it's been a gradual increase, which has been very encouraging to see. ADRs are holding strong, and we've been communicating constantly to the properties to not sacrifice their average daily rates. And most of them have maintained this kind of train of thought. Occupancies have increased, but they're still suppressed, and largely because hotels are having challenges with operational staff, which I think is across the board, not just in the UK, it's a global problem. So often occupancies have been a little bit more suppressed just because they haven't been able to service the rooms. But it's still nice to see a gradual increase in occupancy, and that's London, that's other urban cities as well.
Yeah. So can you just give us, so London, roughly what kind of occupancy you're seeing in London
Sometimes at the weekends, depending on the property, we're seeing occupancies increase to 60-65%.
Okay, so much better. We had a little practice run about a month ago, and it was down in the 50s, so that's great, yeah.
So yes, definitely in September we've seen a positive further increase.
Good.
And during the week it's starting to increase a little bit as well. So a little bit more encouraging than July and August.
Yeah. But some of your hotels, like York, for example, or some of those other, like Manchester, for example, right? Better?
Very
better
much.
Than?
Yeah, a lot better.
We got some Manchester in the house. Let's hear it for Manchester. Okay, no one wants to hear it for Manchester. Okay, all right. You could clap for yourselves, guys. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So Manchester doing a bit?
Manchester are doing really well. I mean,
Yep.
they've benefited from a lot of events that are happening, so some of the sporting events, of course. Marketing Manchester have been very active with various campaigns. So, yes, Manchester's doing pretty well, as is York, which we've talked on. York, Visit York have done some Loves York, have done some very good campaigns. And looking at some of the packages and experiences that people can have, it is domestic, it is very much Yorkshire driven. But the Visit York have done campaigns nationally to support the properties there.
Yeah, great, good, good. And how about you, Serena? I mean, you have a hotel in London and a hotel up in the Lake District. So what have you seen sort of different between the two in terms of occupancy and ADR?
Well, the Grasmere Hotel was just packed right from opening in May and has been until now, really. London, we bumped along the bottom at about 10% all the way through May, June, July. August started to show some improvement, and now the weekends are pretty busy, but we're still not fantastically busy during the week. So we're over 50% now, but it's still not what we'd expect to see at this time of year by any means. Yeah,
great. And how about you, Bernard?
Seeing the same thing, things gradually picking up. I mean, the Athenaeum didn't close during lockdown, in any of the lockdowns. We have some residences, so we have some residential guests there. But I'm not sure that was a good thing, to be perfectly honest, because there's not very many of them. And we do a little bit with film production, so we sort of ticked over there, but we started to see things like Serena really from sort of July into August, and then September's building quite well. You're almost frightened if it builds too quickly, because resourcing can be a bit of a challenge. And we've seen some meetings and events as well, which, while very welcome, it actually makes life rather difficult if you have a big spike in occupancy one particular night. So that's been quite an interesting thing for us to have seen. Like I'm sure all of you in the room, we're with the residences and the suites, we're selling top down where we can. Rate is generally maintained. ADR, we're not struggling. We thought that might be a complete race to the bottom, but I don't think London's seeing that, simply because I don't think anybody's really mad keen to get to 85% occupancy tomorrow afternoon. It's just, we're not quite ready for it.
Yeah. And you've also got some hotels near London, right? Which different kettle of fish to being right in the middle, right? Is that
totally different. We've two hotels outside London for whom 3/4 of their business, or 70%, is meetings and events, really. All of a sudden, they became staycation hotels in July and August, which was a bit of a learning curve, to say the very least, for everybody. But interestingly, and perhaps encouragingly, what we've seen since the start of September, since the 6th of September when the schools went back down here, is M&E is back with a vengeance. The Grove Hotel particularly, this will be the busiest month until next June for the Grove. It's going very, very well. No rate resistance whatsoever, and people are just delighted to be back. We weren't sure if the meetings would be. A lot of that is pent-up demand, it's worth saying, so we've got our eye on the pipeline for after December. But just now, if you don't look too far ahead, it's quite rosy. Yeah,
I should have actually asked, so, I mean, in terms of forward bookings as city hotels, what are you guys seeing? And Serena, how is it looking at Georgian House?
Yeah, really picking up.
It is picking up all the way into the future. That's great.
For next year and right to the end of next summer. So it's picking up much better than it was when we last spoke, in fact, just a few weeks ago.
Good. And how about you, Bernard?
Yeah, I mean, in central London, I think, unless everybody's just booking 5 rooms, which does happen from that part of the world, I think we will have a bit of a Middle Eastern boom in December in London. You can see that on the books now. It's higher occupancies than November. As I look at the properties outside London, they're pretty good October, November. December doesn't look that great, and as I say, we've really got all eyes on the pipeline for next year. A little bit slow for the first quarter. Thereafter, doesn't look like anything to worry about. Yeah.
So one of the questions that we were going to ask was, what are Visit Britain, Visit England, the DMOs, what are they doing really to kind of help cities boost? And they're not here, unfortunately, to answer that question. But it might be useful just to hear whether you've had any interaction with any of these DMOs, and if so, have they been useful in any way, or what would your advice if London and Partners is listening, or what would the advice be, or some of the DMOs? Bernard, I mean, anything to say?
We'll participate where we can. The Athenaeum took part in London Hotel Week in May, but I think, and it's not a criticism of the DMOs, but we tend to do a lot within the private sector actually. So the Athenaeum is part of Pride of Britain. You'll see. I mean, Eleanor represents Preferred. A lot of those organisations have been quite busy actually trying to come up with initiatives to drive occupancy. There have been some for London, sort of Visit London when it's quiet, the sort of staycation thing. I think that's all got legs. Sadly, I just don't think it was quite as compelling as Dorset or Cornwall over the summer period.
Yeah.
But then next summer, I mean, I'm not altogether sure that we should just count on staycations dying next year, and it may well be that London, while it will get better, might not be as good as normal. It may actually still be quite a good time for our own population to come to the theatre and do some of the things in London.
Yeah. And what about, I mean, you, Sereni, because you have experience up in the Lake District, and I think you were saying, wow, like visit Lake, visit Cumbria, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So what lessons can, like London and Partners, what could they learn from the Cumbria?
I think because my experience of the tourist board in Cumbria has been so complete. They've taken so much care with us. They've contacted us all the way through. They've had special marketing campaigns for us. There's been a whole load of support. And we used to have a London tourist board. I don't know if anybody else can remember this. I'm very old now. Probably about 25 years ago, I guess. And that hasn't existed for a long time. And because London's just had such a great flow of visitors anyway, I think that it was felt that it wasn't needed. And the focus has been, I think, with London Partners, it's about winning corporate business for the big events and, these big conferences and so on. And it's only at times like this, when we have something that we just hadn't foreseen at all, that you realise the awful hole has been left for small independents like us. Where we don't have a massive marketing budget, and there isn't that. There's no structure, or there's no support for us really in terms of marketing within London. So I think that we've just been forced to be as creative and resourceful as we can be, I think.
Yes, which we're going to hear a little bit about in a minute. How about you, Ellen? I mean, so is what Bernard says right? I mean, has Preferred Hotels been trying to do any kind of destination marketing, would you say?
Absolutely. We have probably invested more in our marketing campaigns and our digital marketing and e-commerce, looking at inspirational travel. So we really support properties to do brand level campaigns, but also individual hotel level campaigns through our marketplace program. So it allows them a very low cost way to have that targeting through social media and digital campaigns. To just maintain the awareness and to maintain the visibility, which we've really encouraged the properties to do, to not go dark, to constantly communicate and be present and visible. And that's been very successful for the properties that remained open, and also the ones that didn't. We've still said to them, still maintain a presence. We started with a campaign last year, Love Local, which was to really target the domestic market. And we evolved that to where next. So when things started to open up, we could target the domestic market on behalf of the properties and really support them through their efforts and their packages and campaigns that they were doing. And we took them to a group level as well. So it is the marketing, and properties will engage with their individual DMOs themselves, but we want to be able to supplement and enhance what they're doing, and I think that's really helped them.
Yeah, it's good, interesting. I guess the question, and I'd love to hear, by the way, when we meet, so we will have time hopefully at the end for about 10 minutes of questions or comments from you, the audience. Would love to hear from the Manchesters and the Cardiffs, and what other cities do we have in the house, by the way? Any? Leeds? Dundee. We got Dundee in the house. Other cities in the house? Oxford. We got Oxford in there. Any other cities, by the way, that do we have any Londons? Okay, good. Okay, so would be good to hear from your, how's your experience with London and Partners, or what would you like to see from them? Would be good to know. But in the absence of the national guys, what can city hotels do to help themselves, right? So what have some of you guys been doing, Bernard? I mean, what have you been doing to help yourself?
I mean, this is the independent hotel show. I mean, for years you hear about how, it's about the chains, their distribution, everything else. I think what if you've got the energy, you can create something that's really fun. You can make the decisions very, very quickly. People are screaming out for something that's fun, whether that's in meetings and events or whether it's in individual travel. And I think some places were doing it before the first lockdown, but just celebrating local neighbourhoods. I mean, I think some of the things that we did, we teamed up with Tregothnan Tea, which is a tea firm from Cornwall. That the plants were originally imported from Darjeeling. It grows there. It's been grown for the last 15, 20 years. We put that on, did a celebration Chelsea Flower Show afternoon tea thing in September. Yeah, we sold some afternoon tea, but the PR's phenomenal. There was a thing in the parks in London, which you may have seen, all of the elephant statues, the coexistence thing. Nothing to do with our hotel, but we happen to be opposite Green Park, so you put some of that out, and the reach is incredible on social media and everything else. So if you just use the I suppose the opportunity that local decision making makes, also to build partnerships. Some of the partners we've been able to get attention for are people we just wouldn't have been able to speak to hitherto. Whether it's Harvey Nicks, Hamleys, these kind of people. Little hotels like ours don't get partnerships with them, and you sort of think, well, obviously somebody else has either furloughed everybody or didn't get up and ask the question. So sometimes it's not being afraid to get a no or something like that, just putting a bit of energy in. Would we have bothered when times were good? Probably not. We wouldn't have needed to. Occupancy was fine, ADR was fine. So I think that is the point Eleanor was making. You just got to go, be a bit more energetic and find it within yourself to do the best you can. Yeah.
And what about have you guys been active in the discounting area, would you say? To stimulate demand?
Not so much. At times, as I say, I think we've tended to find that our residences, the apartments, have been in demand because people like the idea of that product. It's fairly low contact, or it can be. But no, we're seeing still the top side of the inventory selling out first, and so there's a little bit here and there, but we're not finding it's driving a huge amount, to be honest.
Yeah. Now, Serena, tell us because you've been doing some really interesting stuff, both on the experiential side and also kind of you haven't been discounting, but you've been carving out your townhouse. So talk a little bit about both those things for us.
Well, just from the point of view of discounting, we actually had an annex, and our occupancy figures when we reopened were so low. And I think we were kind of being squeezed, really. We were really being squeezed on rate. So what we did is we split off the annex, and we've been selling it as a separate identity at discounted rates, and then that kind of reduced the number of rooms that we're trying to sell in the main building, where we managed to hold on to our rate better. So that's how we sort of diversified, by making sort of two separate products. One which was no breakfast, very basic. We stripped out all the expensive kind of toiletries and replaced them with very kind of simple basic ones, and sold inexpensively in the annex, and then kept our sort of main service and pricing in the main building. So that's how we kind of went about it.
Very innovative, yeah. And then you've also got your sort of Potter light kind of. Yeah. Potter inspired thing.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Quite a few years ago now, when my children were reading the Harry Potter books, we're based very close to Victoria, so the tour buses for Warner Brothers leave from there. So I had the idea with some basement rooms to make them a bit more gothic-y and to make them into this sort of wizard experience. And these wizard chambers have just been full ever since. It was really fun. We used lots of antiques and nice bits and pieces, so they're quite lovely and charming. We found as we came out of this, the one bit of business that stayed super strong and was still really popular with these wizard chambers. So we've revamped the rooms a bit, and we've put a little bit of extra into that. So now people come and get kind of tokens to a tuck shop, and the children can choose some bits and pieces, which is really sweet. And also we had a magical wizard afternoon tea, and we've revamped and relaunched that, and it's got some really nice bits to it, and that's been really helpful because it's given us a lot of very positive PR and some nice column inches that have helped to drive a lot of business.
Yeah.
So not only have we the afternoon teas have sold really well, the Wizard Chambers sell really well anyway, but actually it's helped to sell the leisure rooms at the weekend because people are coming to do the kind of wizardy experience as well.
And you package it up as a wizardy kind of experience in the...
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is for the Harry Potter fans, and we have lots of guests at the weekend walking around in their robes and.
Do you really?
Yeah, we do.
Great.
Yeah.
And perfect. Like social media must love that.
Yeah,
That's great.
I mean, it's great, and it wasn't a way that we originally saw ourselves going, but I mean, it's been a saving grace for us at the moment, and I think this it's just a USP. It's something a bit different, and we've just found that through this very difficult and challenging time, sort of mining that seam a bit deeper has stood us in good stead. Sort of go for something that makes us a bit different, and then going deeper into it has been a good strategy for us, I think.
That's great, very creative. And Eleanor, I think you have some advice sort of on the locals, like partnering with locals, right? That hotels should be considering, right?
Yes, absolutely. We have looked at companies that will complement our hotels and what they're offering. And through our loyalty program, which is called I Prefer, which we have around 4 million members, we've created an offshoot of that called I Prefer Loves, which gives the members of the loyalty program an opportunity not just to get enhanced benefits and rewards at the properties, but we've partnered with complementary partners that will complement, I should say, the offering. So special offers and deals are unlocked for them, and they're encouraged to go to the website to understand what the offer is of the time, and we're changing those partners very frequently, which then in turn drives business to the properties. So that's something that has been launched just this year and has proven to be very successful. So,
Brilliant. I mean, that's a great set. And I'd love to hear when we open it up. I'd like to hear, what are you city hotels doing, right? What are you doing to help yourselves? It'd be nice to share that information. So be thinking about that, because I might call on you. So okay. And now people are going to leave because they don't want to be called on. Okay. I think one of the things that, as I said, we did gather about a month ago just to kind of have a chat and see what we were going to talk about today. And the woman from Visit England who was on that, she was saying, look, we love content, right? So be thinking about your hotel in very sort of content-oriented terms. So for example, what Serena was talking about in terms of the Harry Potter experience photos, she said, make sure you send it. They have a generic content box called content@visitengland.org, and if you email like content ideas to them, they can assemble them, put them out on social media. Like, I think it's good to think about places like Visit England or London and Partners as a sort of amplifier of what you're doing. Make sure you hashtag them in, right? I mean, Bernard, you were talking when we chatted, I think you said, don't fire your PR guys, right? So tell us a bit more about why you said that.
Well, and that was also the information we got from Visit England was they're just obsessed with, this was a new word to me, what this lady called listicles. They're roundups to me. Just by your PR, keep plugging away, keep doing things. There's just all of the editors are looking for things to write and for content, particularly when readers were at home. Obviously a lot of it's online, it doesn't really matter, but they've got to fill these column inches and try and keep their subscription rates going. So they're quite hungry for just, I won't say anything, but anything that is a compelling read. And that was certainly, it was interesting that was feedback that she chimed in with, wasn't it? That you think they'd be awash with content and they're beating it away, but it wasn't the impression that was given at all.
Yeah, and again, it would be great to hear whether anybody done that. Hashtag folks in from any of these sort of DMOs and got a good result. I mean, do you do any other content work we haven't talked about, Serena, or anything?
Not in London. That's been our main thing in London. Has been the kind of the wizard stuff.
And
that we've
do you
been
get the word
promoting.
out on social about when you do your
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
Important to use that tool, I presume, right?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful about how we work with our PR partners because we want to make sure that they're being able to approach
Yeah.
journalists and so on before we've kind of gone and
Yeah.
ruined it with all the social. But
Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask, it's a hot term, right? The world of what they call influencer marketing, right? So have any of you done any work with any influencers? Got them into the establishment, had them do anything interesting that can kind of jumpstart? Because that's quite experiential. Elena?
We do this quite regularly, where we have a team looking after social media and PR, and we're often approached by people who are these influencers or bloggers, and we give the hotels those opportunities to host them.
Yeah. So they come to you.
They come to us, yeah. And it depends. I mean, it depends if the fit is right and the match is right. It's very it's looked at very carefully because obviously it has to be the right fit.
Yeah.
But a hotel that particularly wants to promote something and the influencer has that following or that audience, then absolutely, it's big business.
Do you think it's a good way to jumpstart things, Serena? Influencer? Have you done anything interesting in the area?
yeah, I think it is. But it's absolutely, as you say, that it has to be a great fit, and you get far more people asking to come and write and stay that aren't a great fit. So I think that it's a matter of researching. But we've got quite long-standing relationships now with some, influencers that have stayed over a long period of time. They take really beautiful photographs.
Yes.
They share those photographs
Yes.
with us. We've had some good partnerships that we think have worked well for us.
So if people are thinking about influencer marketing, I mean, what tips would you give them to make the most of the opportunity? Yeah, go on, Ellen. Yeah.
Don't expect anything,
Right.
but
No expectations.
But don't expect anything in return, but give them a lot to, make sure that they have the best experience.
Yeah.
And yeah.
How about you, Bernard? I think you've done some work on influencers, right?
I would agree. I think it's come a long way in the last 5 or 6 years. It was a bit of a minefield before where everyone just looked at the number of followers, and which was beyond crude really in marketing terms. But more recently, as Ellen has said, that they are sort of coming into particular areas, and if you can get the right one, which you may need some advice with, we do. You've got to be really up to date on these sorts of things. But I've always been a fan of this. It's a little bit like when you back in the day had journalists to stay, and then I don't know, they were a bit hard work or they expected a lot or whatever else. I mean, that's what it is. And if you I would say the influencer marketing is the same. It needs to be right because it's all moving imagery and everything else, and they can't hide something that isn't right. If you're a bit busy and you put them in a less good room, well, guess what? That's what's going up. Or nothing's going up if you're lucky, probably, if you've done that. And I think it's quite time consuming, but it's just part of a marketing mix. I mean, they're not a panacea for anything, they're just another medium that we have now.
Yeah, yeah. Serena, anything to add to any of that?
No, I agree with both those.
Yeah. So we're going to throw it open to the questions, right? So be ready, folks. But one of the things that, one of the questions that the organizer said, what's the future of business travel, right? I mean, in these urban centres. So what do our panelists think of the future of business travel? Bernard, I know you've got a view, right? So
yeah, I mean, we've engaged with companies very, very locally. We're finding in central London people are still a bit reticent to travel. That's not great, the whole public transport thing. But even that throws up an opportunity where people would have been commuting. There have been a handful of people where we've sort of agreed a rate with them, and they're going to come to the office 2-3 days a week, so they'll stay with us 1-2 nights, and they'll almost binge the office bit across a 2-day period. But I think the broader point about they need a reason to stay because they've managed to, if they're still in business, to do business for 18 months without staying with us. So it needs to be a conscious decision, and what we're hearing, particularly with people getting together, is we've got to get together, and when they do, it's not a great big social event. I mean, the meeting is almost incidental actually, but it's a human need for contact, and so I do think but they want it to be fun. The idea of sitting in a rectangular box listening to somebody present PowerPoint slides is utterly pointless. You can do that on Teams or Zoom, as we all have done, and I think But if there's a leisure component or a fun component, or bring a mixologist in, just do anything, just make the meeting a bit more animated, and they'll think, yeah, that's a reason for us to get together, and we can get the VAT back and claim tax on it because we'll call it a meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's almost blending it with rewards or incentives now is what we're certainly seeing in the out of London properties. I think you'll see the same in town as well.
Yeah. How about you, Serena? Anything to share on business travel? Or?
Well, we're
You're generally leisure, aren't you?
yeah, we are. We're a leisure hotel, really. But we can definitely tell at the beginning, when there was no business travel, we could tell we were all fighting over the same very small sort of leisure market. And now you can feel that business is coming back a bit, because that's the leisure bit is getting easier for us. But surprisingly, we've seen quite a bit of business coming back to us, which we were never really corporate in the first place, but we've started to see quite a few corporate visitors coming back. Yeah.
Great. And how about you, Elena? What's your view on the?
I've got two, because I see.
What are your views?
It's the smaller companies that are coming back first, because they've got less bureaucracy to allow their employees to travel, and we're seeing an almost like a FOMO effect, a fear of missing out. If they're not in front of their customers, then they want to have the competitive advantage. So it's these smaller companies that the hotels are picking up business from, because they can travel, they can be a little bit more agile, they don't have to have so many protocols from their commercial standpoint to travel, that they want to be in front of their customers that they haven't seen for a long time. So that's one point. The second point is the hotels are really looking at why people are coming to them. So it could be for business, but they're saying, well, how can I attract this person to my property when the competition is so big? So they're looking at things like mental health workshops, yoga workshops, which it's all merging from a leisure standpoint into a corporate minefield. They're looking at, what will this person be interested in? Do we have a fabulous art collection? Can we do an art tour at the same time as when that person is staying for business? So we're seeing an awful lot of new innovations to attract the corporate and what they want to be doing when they're on property, as well as the leisure traveller. So it is coming back. I think hotels are being more innovative in how they appeal and attract that lucrative business traveller.
Yeah, great. So before I throw it open, I mean, is there anything that we haven't didn't ask you about, kickstarting the city hotel that you guys want to share? Did we generally cover anything that you'd like to share that we didn't cover?
I don't think so. It's only the point that I made. I mean, we don't need to wait for the tide to come in for your boat to start floating. I mean, I think, there's the people with the energy and the passion and the creativity will come out a bit stronger, would be my sense.
Yeah. Serena, anything?
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's nothing wrong with giving something a go. And if it doesn't work, hopefully you haven't. It's only your time and effort that you've really kind of lost from it. And keep having a go, and something's going to work, I think.
Yes, and I guess it's just being visible, being agile, be visible, use the tools that you have through social media, and understand why people are coming to your property, why they're coming, and what you can create to attract them, what packages you can create that would appeal to them. It's all, people are travelling for different reasons. It might be missed family celebrations, it might be to meet with family and friends that they haven't seen for a long time. It might be an experience that they've always wanted to do that is on your doorstep, which you weren't even aware of. So it's really understanding why people are coming to your property and marketing specifically to them.
Yeah, that's good advice. I love that advice. So we've got about 10 minutes remaining. I think we have a roving mic. Is that right? We've got a roving mic. So questions from the floor, please, or just share with us what challenges jump-starting your hotel, something innovative that you've done. Can we see some hands? Can you just tell us your name and where you're from?
Hi, so my name is Sherry Roberts. I'm from a company called The Longest Stay, and technically my DNA came back yesterday, so I'm actually half Russian, half British.
Little louder.
Can
Go
you
on.
hear me at all?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
better now,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm Sherry Roberts. My company's The Longest Stay. I live in London, but I was just making a joke that my DNA came back yesterday, and I'm half British and I'm half Russian.
Oh, right.
So you can like the combination or not. So the question I have is increasing revenue per room is obviously something should be important for you to think about because you've lost revenue and you've got to kind of make up. I have an interesting innovation where we help you increase revenue per room by making your room shoppable. So for example, if somebody wants to buy something in the room, they'd be able to buy through us and we'd be able to share the revenue back with you. So it's called The Longest Stay, and it's shoppable hotels, shoppable cruises, and yeah, so just thought I'd mention it because of where you guys are at with your hotel business, and you might find it interesting because people do want to buy what they see in hotels.
Great, thank you. Any comments on that at all from our panel? Any comments there, or?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, they do. I mean, Ritz-Carlton and some of the others have proven it. I mean, you know, you just, it's a proven model, but again, you just need to put the effort in and think about it, and making the product available is the real trick, as I'm sure, you know, that's your business.
Great, gentleman at the back. No, looks like it's not, that's off. Let's have another.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
Thank you and welcome back, one and all.
What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Mark Underwood. My consultancy is Business Matters. My question, and thank you for all the discussion so far, is during these troubled times, have you added any additional measures that you didn't measure before to what you will measure in the future? And do you think you will see any sort of normal, or is there no such thing now?
Any sort of?
Normal. People
Yeah.
keep thinking about the new normal.
Okay, great.
Is there
Any,
any such thing?
so any kind of new KPIs, new measurement criteria, and is there a new norm? So, who'd like to take that? Bernard? Yeah, go on. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting point, and I think it's one we need to be alive to. The shape of your business is likely to change. You know, we've enjoyed all sorts of weird and wonderful things like rate holidays and VAT changes, and but then as you move forward, I mean, I look at the break-even point on any of our hotels now to EBITDA break-even, let's say, rather than full owner's return, and I tell you, it's a lot lower than it was pre-COVID. So, you know, I think in some respects it would be negligent not to try and actually reset at a point. Now, the headwinds against that will be labour rates and a whole host of other things, and taxes in a couple of years. But I think you've almost a duty as an owner to actually be thinking that way. Well, what is the shape of the P&L and the business going to look like in 3-4 years' time? What's my target for that? It's not just, you know, battering away selling up revenue. I think we need to actually think about what the cost composition ought to be and go after that. And just, we may be wrong, we may be right, but just to sleepwalk into a position feels a bit negligent given the huge dislocation that we've had over the last 18 months.
Yeah, interesting. Either of you should go ahead, Serena. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the government will be really pleased with us because we've started to look at our productivity and to actually measure that. We're looking at turnover balanced against salary, you know, hours worked, because we want to see, you know, because wages are going so steeply upwards, we want to see how much we can generate from the number of hours that people are working with us. And that's a measure for us now, and I think it will be going into the future, to be honest.
Eleanor?
I guess it's just from a sales and marketing standpoint, just analysing, you know, very tightly what works and what doesn't, and just being agile enough to, if it doesn't work, don't flog it, just move on to the next thing and move on, really.
Yeah, chalk it up to experience. Thank you. Good question.
We run a hotel in Skipton in North Yorkshire.
Where, sorry?
Skipton,
Skipton,
North Yorkshire.
great. Yeah.
And we've been full from May, like everyone else, I think, in the country regions. I just wanted to ask a question, particularly from a London point of view. We were running hotels in Dubai for the last 20-odd years, and we made a tremendous amount of revenue and profit out of the Dubai residents. When we went through down times where there's been an oil glut or a property bust. And I was just wondering, what are the opportunities of the 17 or 18 million residents in London being attracted to your hotels through innovation, through promotions, through concerts, through any form of activity? Is there a very large London possibility to do a lot better out of hotels? Staycations with the London population, 2-night special breaks, special discounts, special promotions.
You're talking about Londoners staying in London.
Londoners staying in London, for example. And
Good question.
And I don't know, and I'm asking.
Yeah. So what about
is
that?
An opportunity?
What about that? Thank you. Good question. Yeah. And is that a market? Have you seen any action there?
It is. I mean, I'm no expert in it. My sense is that slightly less overnight possibilities than perhaps in the expat communities that you're describing, but nevertheless, we're actually back higher than COVID in our food and beverage operation on Piccadilly, which was never sensational, but we're better than we ever were, and that's Londoners and people from the suburbs travelling in and enjoying what's been put on. I mentioned that Chelsea flower show afternoon tea. There was no international guests at that. That was all local traffic from within 15-20 miles. So there is a market, but my sense is we found richer pickings on food and beverage and meetings than we have on overnight.
Yeah. And how about you, Serena? Yeah.
Yeah, the Wizards stuff is really popular with Londoners. The afternoon teas tend to be people that are living locally in London that are coming especially for that. And I think people just have got an appetite for doing something fun and flippant and different, and so I think that's really appealed to locals. And also just things like kids' birthdays and special treats, that kind of thing we found has been popular with people that aren't from far away.
Marriage proposals.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Anna?
Yes, I mean, who knew that International Dog Day, which was I think on the 26th of August, there was a huge surge of properties in London. Certainly, I know the Royal Lancaster Hotel did their own puppy shoot with dogs in the bath and dogs in the... Because 3.2 million people added a dog to or a pet to their family during lockdown.
Wow.
So, people who can go away, who are fairly local, don't have a long journey, can go to London. I think there's a huge opportunity to look at things like that, which hotels have done, and taking it on a different angle. So, yes, doing more innovative things and being a tourist in your own town, which is what some of our hotels have been looking to do.
It's great. One more question. Great.
Hi, I'm Swapnil from B3 Designers. We do interior design for hotels and restaurants. And recently, after the pandemic, something that we've started to think about from a design point of view is how can we use clever interior design, custom joinery to sell the same space twice. So for example, we are currently finishing off an airport hotel in a European city, and we've sort of thought about, this space is great for meetings and events, but can we then, once that time period, about 6, 7 p.m., and people are done with meetings, can we then sell this space again as a bar, and have tried to use clever design and clever furniture and clever lighting to switch the same space around to generate double revenue for the hotel. Is that something that you think about, or I'd just like some comments on that. Any thoughts?
Who wants to take that? Go on, Bernard. Yeah.
I think perhaps for a different reason than people might appreciate, there's a huge opportunity there. I mean, as we've seen through lockdown, the world has just become much less formal very, very quickly. There's been it's happening anyway, but it's been a massive acceleration. And I was speaking with some people at the Grove this morning. I mean, we're looking at some of our meeting spaces and just saying, do people really want to sit in a room like this, or are they looking for something that's just a bit more like their lounge or whatever else? And of course, the closer that meeting spaces, for example, get to that, the easier transformation they are into a bar, because the difference between the two things is smaller in the first place. So in some ways, I think the two things will converge quite a lot. the world is very informal now, and it's only going to go in that direction. I don't see it going the other way.
I'd love to be able to do something like that, because we have that sort of eating space for breakfast in the morning, and then throughout the rest of the day, I think we'd see far more use of that area if we could make it softer and more comfortable and more relaxing. But then how do you balance? It would be great if we could turn things around and change the feel of the room from one time of day to the other, because the practicality of eating your breakfast lying on a sofa isn't that great. But we're space limited, and the idea of being able to change it up for different times of the day really appeals to me. I'd love to be able to do something like that.
I would recommend the Prince Akatoki Hotel in Marylebone, and they have a whiskey bar which we designed. But there's a whiskey bar which in the daytime is a Japanese tea room, and we have a fireplace. And the way it's been designed is, the furniture kind of flows into both a Japanese tea room and a whiskey bar at night. But what we've done with the joinery is a very clever design where it all covers up, and then in the night it just opens up to reveal beautifully lit, backlit whiskey bottles, and we put up the bar stools, and it just completely changes the atmosphere, and they are able to sell it twice. So if you have the time, please go check it out.
Great. Nice advert. Lovely and creative. Good way to end. Thank you. Okay, well, so this is it. This is the very last seminar on the very last day of the Independent Hotel Show. So I'd like to say a huge thank you from left to right. Hold on. Everybody needs their own moment. So, Bernard Murphy, Serena van der Heijden, Eleanor Booker, me, Richard Freeman, and of course, last but not least, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of the tech guys for doing a brilliant job miking up. So have a big hand for them. And a huge hand for Phoebe Dunn from the Independent Hotel Show, who's pulled this entire agenda together and is a pleasure to work with. So thanks to Phoebe and everybody at the Independent Hotel Show, and thanks to you for the great questions. Thanks a lot, folks.